Welcome to the Ask Brien podcast radio show, where you'll hear from some of the most successful founders and CEOs of businesses and startups, sharing their best advice for success and even some stories on how their mistakes actually make them even more successful. Now, here are your hosts, Brien and Tracy.
Welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Like no other station in the world! Anyway, you're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show. Ask Brien Radio basically is a business-oriented show. Each week, we try to have either a startup company or CEO or someone that can teach someone something about business. And that's what the Ask Brien Show is all about. It's been on since 2017, January, way back when we had the Pony Express. Everybody asks us all the time on the Ask Brien Radio Show, why are you using the letter E? Last week, Tracy answered that question because the engineer was, gets too dumbfounded and doesn't know what's going on and gets all confused. So we thought we'd let somebody else try. But, Tracy's not going to be with us this week, so we are going to go back to the engineer. And, we know that engineer starts with an E, but why do you spell Brien with an E?
Well, you know why? There's a number of E words that have to do with kind of like the theme of Ask Brien. One of them happened to be engineer, but, he took that aspect away from me because he knows that's my favorite word. Another word, well, let's start with the first word that's not engineer, empathy. Empathy, we're all very
empathetic to all those monkeys.
Terrible. The next one we have is effort because everybody here gives 110% their effort on the Ask Brien Show.
How can you give more than 100%?
It's, I don't know, go reach beyond your limits, I guess. Go beyond. Other ones we have are excellence because we exude nothing but excellence here on the Ask Brien Radio Show. Another one we have happens to be, we had effort, engineer, empathy, excellence, experts, because everybody here on the Ask Brien Show is an expert in some sort of field that we have. Kind of differs every single week, but we do bring on experts.
Everyone except for the engineer, but go ahead.
Easy there, partner, easy.
Nah.
Hey, easy. Anyways, aren't there two, happen to be ones that...
Well, there's two, but I've added a third one because it's all part of the same thing. Let's get enthusiastic and be excited because you got a lot of energy.
That's a pretty good one, actually. Those are pretty similar to each other. All right, sweet.
Well, everyone, as Tracy won't be here, it'll be just myself, and I guess we'll be making, our usual great comments from the guy who thinks he's an engineer and sits across me. But without any further ado, how do you spell ado?
A-D-I-E-U.
Why don't I like that word?
Because majority of those letters are vowels.
And,
well, except for the D.
Because most people don't use that word.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah, that's true.
A little old-fashioned. So we have our guest, and his name is Bill Saller. Bill, you there?
I am. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. That was wonderful.
You have a long last name. It took me like 2 minutes.
Well, it was long for you. Yeah.
Anyway, you were on the show once before, but not everyone listened to every show because there are some stragglers out there that don't get to listen to every show, and we're calling them out right now. But not too many people know your background. What is your background? I know you mentioned something that you're in the food industry, but I don't know what that means other than the fact that I like to eat those goldfish and ramen noodles. But I don't know what exactly business are you in?
Well, so Albany Farms, I'm CEO of Albany Farms. We're a food company. We were launched in 2017 and with the purpose of being a significant distributor of food products to primarily retail chains across the U.S. And my background, I've been in the food industry and in retail and in international business my entire career. I left college for an opportunity to own my own bread distribution business. I owned a route, if you will, and was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug from that point forward. I've been involved in launching brands like, Snapple Iced Teas, Crystal Geyser Waters, Krispy Kreme Donuts, had a fair amount of success in those industries. And so we launched Albany Farms in 2017, and we're very fortunate to have a terrific team of people involved in the group, which is what is needed in our industry to be successful. We have some long-term industry professionals, and pretty much everybody is more capable than myself, which as a CEO I think is crucial, and I feel very blessed from that in that regard. So we're currently, we've launched approximately a year and a half ago a ramen noodle, 18 different SKUs that people might find in some of the largest or one of the largest retailers in the world. We've launched on the West Coast with the ramen products. We've had significant success, and we will, in the next 4 years, be one of the largest food companies in the country. That's a target of ours, and that's a realistic one. So we have very lofty aspirations, and we're working hard toward that and very excited to be in that position.
I'm not trying to stump you, but, I do that all the time. So you said you're in the ramen noodle business right now, okay?
We are.
And you said you wanted to be one of the biggest food companies in the world. Do you have any statistics to know the sales volume of ramen noodles compared to other products?
Absolutely. So ramen noodles is a $28 billion a year industry. It's growing annually at about 2.5%. It's one of the larger growth items in the food category. We've had it's been an interesting past year for us. At the same time we launched with this significant retailer, we also, the whole COVID thing hit us as like it did everybody else. And because we're currently importing our product, that created some significant challenges, and not the least of which is, finding containers and finding transportation and the costs that are associated with that. So it's been a very trying year. But we made a decision, and we're very proud of that, to provide a significant amount of ramen products in the U.S. that might not have otherwise been available. And ramen is one of those categories that, a lot of people that can't afford, to go to the Whole Foods or, places like that, they rely on that cheaper product for a meal. And so we made a decision during COVID to continue on and provide a significant amount of product, even though from a financial perspective it was challenging because we were facing significant container costs to import product. There weren't people working at ports. There was a lack of equipment. And it was just very, very challenging. But we decided to do it anyway, and we're very proud of the fact that, in a very trying time, we're coming out of it now, but in a very trying time, we were able to provide that product for a lot of folks that may not have had that otherwise.
I was very surprised. You're telling me $28 billion?
$28 billion. Yeah, it's a huge category.
That is a huge category.
And it's expected to grow further, in the next 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, it's not just because it's being consumed a lot. It's not just because of COVID that people are looking for quick, easy meals that are easy to prepare. And so it's skyrocketed recently, but it's going to continue. And also not just in the, the lower end category, but also from a flavor perspective with, a very spicy noodles are very popular with the younger generations. And there's just a significant growth. Now, at the same time, one of our passions is to create a healthier product. So we're going to tweak and work on formulations to create a ramen noodle that's a little bit healthier than what you might find available now. And we're working toward that as we speak.
Are we referring to whole wheat? Are we referring to gluten-free?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, gluten-free is one area. A higher protein profile is another. Lower sodium. Sodium is a major issue with ramen because to get that significant flavor, typically the sodium profile is egregious. So we're working on that as well for different options. We've got research and development department and different folks that are working together to create a healthier product. So the higher the protein, the lower the sodium, different noodle presentations, whether that's plant-based or otherwise. There's lots of ways that we're approaching this. And our target and what we are going to accomplish is certainly a healthier product than what's been available for the last 20, 25 years.
What about a low carb?
Low carb is possible too. Now that depends on the type of noodle. That's where that comes from. And there are many options from that, plant-based options that can accomplish that. Our initial target is going to be the sodium content and the protein because people that are consuming this ramen noodle, we want it to be a true meal, not just empty calories that you're consuming. So that's one of our passions. Now, at the same time, we have to be cognizant of the marketplace and what people are willing to pay for a ramen noodle. So we're always, conscious and aware of pricing as well. So our company's built around significant volume and low margin with a great quality product. That's what we're built around. And that's why we've had such significant interest from a number of, actually the largest retail chains in the world.
What's the average retail cost of the ramen noodles?
Well, it can be as low as what we call a pillow pack or a pouch. That can be as low as 20 or 25 cents for a single unit. And for the cups could be between 35 and 50 cents a unit. Depends on, where you're at. But, yeah, they're very inexpensive, and a lot of people consider those meals. And so, our passion is to keep our costs down as much as possible. But by being aware and mindful of the fact that it needs to be, a bit healthier product, and that's what we're working on as well.
What about environmentally? You mentioned that they have the cups, right? So is anything being done on that area?
So we're one of the only companies that I'm aware of that offers a paper cup versus a styrofoam. Styrofoam obviously is horrible for the environment. It ends up usually in oceans and doesn't break down and ends up in, marine life consumes that. And so the paper is biodegradable. It's something that is, really good for the environment. It's a little bit more pricey, but we feel that that's the better path to take, the better approach to take. In addition, we're looking at blockchain technology so that a consumer that purchases our product, they have the ability to see, where everything that we touch to make our product is grown, where the wheat is harvested, from our flavoring standpoint. We want to be truly transparent for consumers. And that's why, among many reasons why we believe we'll be one of the top 2 ramen brands in the country.
And who's your computer comp?
Well, from a retail perspective, that would be Marachon. There are 2 main competitors, Marachon and Nissin Foods. Nissin would be more like a cup of noodles that people might recognize. Marachon mostly is the retail competitor. And they do great companies that do great work. We're trying to change the category a little bit and not just, clone what others have done. We're trying to, create, produce, and distribute products that people are going to come back for and realize that they're getting a great value, they're getting a great product, they're getting tremendous transparency with where the product comes from. And, we've got a great team of partners in the company, from investors to our staff. They're just incredible at what they do, and I feel very blessed from that regard. We're taking some significant steps to grow. We're bringing our production to the U.S. and across the country, and that's a significant task. But we've got such a strong team in place that we have that opportunity.
Our co-host Alex had a couple of questions. Alex, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, sir. Hey, Bill. I just have a few questions for you. I want to take it more into the business side. I love what you guys are doing, and of course, great products. But tell me more about, I know you have R&D. You mentioned that just a minute ago, and you have production. So how much has it helped you? You were talking about pricing. How much has it helped you to put in production lines to lower that cost, or have you done anything to automate production? And how do you go about doing R&D with these? Is there regulations that you follow, and how does that all work? Can you give our listeners a little bit of a taste of that?
Absolutely. From a production standpoint, we're starting with production now. We're launching in California now, so we haven't started that yet. That should be in place in approximately 8 weeks with our first facility with incredibly automated machinery. We'll have some of the fastest, most comprehensive machines in the marketplace. We have a second phase 4 months after that will launch in South Dakota. We're working with the South Dakota Governor's Office and putting a program together there to launch in approximately 4 months. We'll be in Belle Fourche, South Dakota, and that's in the wheat belt. So, and we're a wheat-based company, so there's some significant advantages there. And then we're launching third phase East Coast / Southeast, and we're looking at a few facilities in Georgia. So why would we want to do this in the U.S.? Why? Well, not just from the control standpoint and, knowing everything that is produced here, but it's, we're in the wheat belt here. Flour, which is 90% of what we work with, is 35% cheaper here than it would be, say, for example, in Asia. Asia's a net importer. We're a net exporter, meaning that everything that they use for production is imported, and then they use that for production. With us, it's grown, and using South Dakota as an example, it's literally going to be grown right next to our facility. We're milling it ourselves and going into production. From a blockchain perspective, it can't get much more transparent than that. Your second question regarding R&D, We have an R&D director, Stephanie Magoon, who is doing tremendous amount of work, and we're working with some outside groups. And what we're doing is we're tinkering with formulations. We're tinkering with ways to create a healthier product. And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to lower the sodium. I'm sure the competition's tried to do that as well. But we've had some success, and we're working toward that, and we're real excited about that. And not the least of which, Alex, is we've got, some of the largest retailers in the world that are supporting us in this endeavor. I think COVID's taught a lot of people that, especially in my industry, that, importing is probably not the safest way to go, or maybe even the most viable way to go. And that's why you see empty shelves when you go into stores now, is because retailers are saying, whoops, that might not have been the way to approach. So you're going to see in the future here, we know this firsthand from some of the largest retailers, a made in America, grown in America strategy, and we play a large role, or we play a role in that with one in particular large retailer. They're partnering with us for this endeavor. They want made in the U.S., and we want to provide that. We think there's significant advantages to that, and not the least of which is transparency.
Have you ever thought about using cauliflower noodles or other type of noodles? That was one of the questions Alex had, so I took it from him.
Well, absolutely we are, and we're looking at that now. One of the things you've got to look at is shelf life, because we're mainly in the shelf-stable space. And so we're looking at different packaging options to have a significant shelf life. In our industry, you need to have at least 6 months stable shelf life, to benefit. So we're looking at that now. There are options, and we're looking at it. And we also want to be very cognizant of the final retail price, because consumers, as much as we love to talk about all these different things, consumers are still wary when they see something that's pricey. So it's a mixed bag to bring something like that to market, and it takes significant amount of R&D to get to that point. But our initial target is certainly from a higher protein standpoint, a lower sodium, and then certainly we'll look at other noodle options, which would include lo mein, which would include the pho noodle, which is a rice noodle, which they have their own different benefits and unique taste profile. And we're real excited about that. And what I haven't talked a little bit about is what another thing that we're working on, our entire team, is from a flavoring standpoint. We're looking more toward, very savory products, which is incredibly hot in the market, especially with the younger generation. And that's, from the flaming, scorching, heat. We're also looking at a sweet profile, and we'll, I won't speak too much to it, but we're looking at unique ways to present ramen noodles to the market. And additionally, we're looking at chow mains and things like that.
Well, Bill, I'll tell you, as Brien knows, and most people know, I'm a startup guy. So in my world, we always had ramen as the staple of startups. So if you opened up the cabinet in all of our kitchens, there was nothing but ramen in there. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, and energy drinks, ramen and energy drinks. That was basically kept us all going. So the cost was always something we were concerned about. But we did have people who said, I have to watch my sodium intake. There were people who said, I wish I had a low carb option. There were people who, you're right, there were people who were putting red pepper and hot sauce on ramen. So yeah, you'd be surprised how that was mainly the younger generation, but programmers got to keep them going, whatever it takes to keep them working 24/7. So kind of a neat thing.
Another, interesting thing is that we get lots of folks that reach out to us and say, listen, we use your ramen for a meal presentation. I mean, they'll, cook the ramen and put it with, different meats and different vegetables and actually present it on a plate, and do it that way and top the noodles with all kinds of different, whatever family's favorite toppings are. So there's lots that you can do with the product aside from just simply have, the ramen as it sits. So, and I think more and more people are discovering that, it's very simple, it's very quick. And with Albany Farms, we're going to find a way to make it at least somewhat healthy as well.
How about macaroni and cheese? That's a nice low-income concept. I remember going to the store and buying the Kraft macaroni and cheese, 3 or 4 for $1.
Well,
that's
funny
a lot
you
more
mention
work,
that.
though.
Well, it is. We're going to launch with macaroni and cheese out of our South Dakota facility. And
Wow.
the reason we're doing that because it's the wheat belt there. So obviously from a wheat perspective, which is flour, produces flour, we're right there. But also there's a huge dairy cooperatives there. So, we're doing a lot of good for the state of South Dakota. We're bringing a lot of jobs there. These are fresh jobs because we're currently importing. So we're bringing hundreds of jobs to local communities and using resources and using, our commodities here in the U.S. versus, a lot of competitors, and I'm not speaking to any in particular, they import a lot of their raw materials. And our plan is not to do that. So, again, we're excited about that as well. But we're always going to be leaning toward a healthier product, healthier than the competition.
I have one question before Alex continues, and that is, anytime you bring stuff where you're going domestic, all right, the cost factor is the biggest issue. Why? The labor costs are higher in the U.S. than almost any other country in the world, maybe Europe, but is very high. And then, of course, having the product. So maybe you don't have to pay the fee to import or the fee of a duty, but you still have higher costs all the way around. So how do you compete with the imported companies when you're trying to do that in the U.S.?
Oh, it's a terrific question. Well, there are significant hurdles to importing, and certainly in our category, but others as well. So, the cost of containers are, they've gone up tremendously in the past year, and we don't see them going down. So there's an efficiency there. There's a transportation issue. There's a container ship issue. There's less container ships. A lot of these ocean carriers have downsized, and so there's less physical vessels, on the waters now. It's trickier than it was in the past, that's for sure, and certainly more expensive. But in our category, we're wheat-based, and we happen to be, one of the cheapest countries in the world for wheat happens to be here. And so we have some significant advantages there. And what we have specifically, another area that we're a big advantage is that our equipment is new, very automated and very high speed. I've seen in other countries more than 100 employees for one machine, for an example, and with ours, we're talking something closer to 25. So we tend to be very efficient with our machinery. They tend to be very high speed, so our output is better than, say, what the competitors might have because our equipment is newer and certainly from a speed variable, some of the quickest in the industry. So we feel like we're very competitive, and we think it's the right thing to do as well. And so there might be, we don't see it. We still see it as a net advantage. And the only place that it's not is with the labor, like you said, but we're going to use a lot less of it, but still impact hundreds and hundreds of jobs in each community that we launch in, and we're very excited by that.
Yeah, so Bill, it seems to me that vertical integration that you have, the automation, the ability to be able to mill your own flour right there, that would seem that new machines, the advantage you would have would be cleanliness, speed, which also means freshness, right? And automation, which just means more productivity, so it helps to control costs. And a USA-made product is always the best. I mean, you're making me hungry here. I got to get another startup going so I can put that mac and cheese as well in there. But it seems like that's the way to go. But I was going to ask another question around that. One of the things that we always have, where our audience is always asking, hiring people. So you're building these plants. How are you going about hiring people, and do you need a certain skill set for this, or do you find these are real more the excuse the term, bread and butter workers that are around the country, so you're actually making jobs in the U.S., right?
Well, it's another great question. I can tell you that we've been fortunate in that we have a few human resource folks that are entrenched in their communities, and we do job fairs, certainly for some positions, or we do for all positions. I mean, these are all fresh, brand new jobs, and so there's ample opportunity. So we'll host job fairs. We'll different ways to let the communities know that we are hiring. We'll certainly do some sort of social media as well. We also have plant management that have experience in the food industry, and so they'll have some folks that are, specific to what we're doing that might be a little bit of a benefit. But, to your point, we're not requiring for some of our positions, we will be doing the training. And so these are great, jobs for people to learn a new skill, to get into the food industry. And one of our passions in our company is to, integrate, to promote from within. And so, if you start out as a line worker or somebody, in sweeping the floors, there's no reason that you can't work your way up. If you have dedication and you do what's necessary, the opportunity to reach a very high level in our company exists.
So you're building the American dream for your employees. It's a great deal.
Absolutely, because that's what we believe in. That's what I believe in. I mean, myself, I grew up rather poor and worked hard and had, I've had successes and failures, but I've had some significant opportunities, and I realized in my life, and one of my passions is to share what I've learned. And certainly hard work, tenacity, never stopping, always moving forward is, for me anyway, has been a recipe for success. And I'd love to, impart that wisdom on others. And certainly in our team and, our family of employees, that's going to be, one of the main themes. And, people that are, dedicated and hardworking and want to, improve and have a better life for their families, we're going to support that all the way through.
Let's face it, today people have lost a lot of that, what I like to call the American entrepreneurship, that people want to work for companies that really want to bring the employees up. They also want to work for companies that are USA-based because they feel that there's going to be more growth in the U.S. rather than a lot of companies that just have branches here, ship their money overseas, don't really want you to get better, want to, to work at the lowest wage. So I think what you're doing is great for community and also great for the market. So to me, it's a winning situation and exactly what the entrepreneurial spirit that a lot of our listeners, want to have. It's like getting started, building this business, and, making it successful. I have one more question for you before I turn it over to Brien. It's really quite simple, but it might take you off guard. So when you're doing this and you're looking at this and you're saying, I have, you wake up in the morning and you have this epiphany, this is the noodle we're going to build. Does that happen to you, or do you normally go to customers and say, what would you like to see? What's your development process for a new product?
Well, at my core, it's about making a difference. At my core, it's about approaching particularly food where there's, a lot of food insecurity in the U.S. And so I've always taken the approach of coming up with something that is either healthier, better, cheaper, and finding a way to get that to market. And so that's where we start. Now, the passion that we have with noodles, what we've noticed and what, I had in college, and most of us I'm sure did in high school and college, is you'd have that ramen cup or bowl, and it would, not be very, if you had a couple of them in a day, you'd have enough sodium for a week. So that never rang true to me. So one of our passions, or my passion, what we start the day with, is how can we make it better? How can we get to our marketplace and still make it affordable? We look at that every single day. We want to have a healthy product for our consumers, and we need to be and will be one of the largest brands in the country. So we always look forward. We always take an approach of how can we create, a noodle that has the flavor profile and the texture and the quality, the taste that people enjoy. And so we put a lot of work into that, from the flavoring, the same thing, but we're also looking at flipping the script a little bit. We're looking at, like I said, a sweeter profile, a healthier profile, looking at it from a plant-based perspective. Yes, we go into every day thinking this very same thing. And how can we be most efficient? Some of these things aren't easy to answer. Some of these things you just don't know. You have to find them and take that journey. The importing versus domestic production is a big question for a lot of folks. And that's not an easy answer all the time. It requires a lot to get to that point. And we finally reached the point that, it is the right step for our company in particular. Not everybody can do what Tesla does and bring in machine parts during COVID and, bring them in on airlines. They can afford to do it. Most people can't. So, we had to be realistic about that. And there were just every advantage, everything pointed to us to U.S. production, and we know it's the right path. And, again, I've been very blessed. I've got a team of people that are involved in the company that are as good as exists. And we all have the same philosophy. And we're a company that, once you're in at Albany Farms, you're going to grow. And that's our passion, and just have some terrific jobs.
Your company name is Albany Farms. The ramen noodles that you're selling, are they under Albany Farms, or are they on a different name? And if so, why?
Yeah, so our brand is Panda Signature. I spent 2 years when I was doing international commodities in China. And in Asia, Panda is a big name. It's an important name. It's one that's revered. And in the ramen space, we felt that that was a really good brand to launch with. We have other brands as well, but that's certainly one of our core brands. And we think that in the ramen category, because the ramen comes from an Asian background, that would be, a really good name to launch with. And as I said before, you'll find it in chains such as, say, Walmart and others. So we're really excited about that. We think the brand name was correct.
If you want to bring in other people to your company to help out, bring in money to fund things, what would be the approach that you would take?
Great question. For anybody that's looking for investment, I guess the first things I would say is be prepared, because you're going to be knocking on a lot of doors, and have a lot of rejection. So be very prepared for that. And, much like my attitude, it's, you keep going. To be a bit more specific and precise, if you could find investors that are in your space or understand your space. I think if you're going to, like I'm in the food business, if you're talking to somebody in the tech industry, we kind of talk different languages because they're used to, the upside of being incredible upside that really isn't in the food business. But certainly from a stability and safety standpoint, it might be a little bit different as well. So, you have to find, or, the goal is to find like-minded investors that understand the space. And particularly right now it's challenging, I'm sure, for a lot of folks. And unless you happen to be Ethereum or Dogecoin or in the cryptocurrency space or some of the different stocks that you can invest in that are just shorting them and things like that. People are getting these, reading about these insane returns, thousands of percent and all of that. Well, when you're dealing with a food company that's 12 to 15% EBITDA, it's a little less exciting to some folks, at least right now. But, my argument to that has always been and always will be, from a safety standpoint, we will be here for a long period of time and with a brand name that's known across the country. And to me, there's some significant value there. And in that other space, it's beyond my pay grade, but who knows, right? It's certainly a gamble when you get into those other things. And I think the food space is a lot less of that.
Did you pick food maybe because it was such a safe area and you didn't have to worry about the fact that, hey, listen, everybody's going to need to eat, so you don't have to worry about that?
Well, the truth is I've always been related to food, whether it's in commodity or finished packaged goods. And I've come to learn late in life it's from my childhood. My childhood, there was some food insecurity for our family growing up. And, I didn't realize it, but, so I always gravitated toward that. As I mentioned earlier, I left college to buy a bakery distribution route. Well, it was bread.
Thank you very much. You're listening to KHES 1220 and 98.1 FM. Thank you very much. Have a great week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ask Brien radio show. You can listen to us every Thursday on KTHS AM 1220 and FM 98.1 or via Facebook Live or anytime wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit AskBrien.com to join the conversation and ask us your business questions, and we'll answer them on our next episode. That's AskBrien.com.